Hi, my name's Keziah Gibbons. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the founder of the Guided by Keziah app. And this is this week's tarot reading for the week ahead. So, July is Disability Pride Month, and this week's reading is based around that concept or based around some of the experience of disability that I've been I don't know what the word is, I've been dealing with recently. So I am disabled in different ways. And also I'm just going to stress here that I am drawing on my own experience. I do not speak for all disabled people. I know that there are people who have more challenges than me, and that I know also that even though I experience ableism very regularly, misogyny, I live in a misogynistic world, I still do, I still have quite a lot of privilege as well. So I know there are people who have intersecting identities that are gives them different experience from me. But with all that said, I have written a tarot spread for us this week based around what I can share on the experience of disability in the context of disability pride. So I'll talk you through the spread, and then we'll go ahead and draw some cards. So the first two cards, the first two positions in the spread, I call visible and invisible. And so some disabilities are visible. If you see me in my scooter or on my crutches, then you can tell by looking at me that I have mobility impairment, for example. And how we present in the world matters. I notice when people can see my mobility impairment, they treat me differently from when they can't see it or when I didn't have it. And so how we present in the world does make a difference to the way that we are treated, the way that we're perceived, the way that we're treated, the way that our interactions go, whether that's on a conscious or unconscious level. So this first position of the visible is like what is seen, that is taken into account, that influences your interactions particularly, or your experience in a certain way this week. And then the other position of the invisible, again in this context of disability pride, there are invisible disabilities, and I have them myself. I have various different things going on. I have chronic illness. I'm autistic, which I only really had confirmation of this year. That's another story. I have other neurocognitive things going on. I have significant memory loss. I always work from notes. I always have notes to support me. That's an accommodation I make for myself. And in the context of this reading, well, firstly, for a lot of people who have hidden disabilities, this affects in their daily lives what their needs might be, what they might need in order to participate, accomplish, live in the way that they want to. But a lot of people with invisible disabilities report that they have a very hard time. So they can't always, they're not always believed. They can't always get the accommodations that they need, or, at the very least, they find themselves having to explain themselves all the time, rather than just because we live in a society that doesn't automatically assume a level of compassion, of kindness, of trusting people to assess their own needs. So this is the invisible in the context of this tarot spread. This is the invisible that affects your experience. So this week, the first two positions we have are the visible, which affects your interactions and experience, and the invisible, which also affect your interactions and experience. So the seen and the unseen, or the known and the unknown. Then the next position we have is people. So in the context of this tarot reading, this is about the people that you might meet going out and about or in your daily life. And I have found that most of the people I meet are really lovely. Really, really lovely. Most people are kind, most people are helpful. People will make an effort to check in, especially when they can see my visible disabilities. Do I need any help? Would I like them to open a door, carry something? And more generally, most people are really, really lovely. And so most of the people you meet are lovely. Some people, you need to work a little bit harder to communicate with, shall we say, and to get on the same page. So in the context of this week's reading, this is about how people are this week, and what resources might you be able to bring to improve your interactions with people this week. Then we've got infrastructure. Infrastructure can be about the physical infrastructure. It can be about the way things are organised. I have discovered that I need to complain about infrastructures in the context of disability. Well, I've usually got 2 or 3 complaints open. So, for example, at the moment, I'm making a complaint about a concert that I would like to go to that has no infrastructure in place to get accessible tickets. I'm making a complaint about a train that I was refused access to because the person didn't want to put down the ramp and was extremely rude. So there was a policy and a training infrastructure fail there. I'm complaining about an airport that separated me from my child for 15 minutes and left my child on their own and anxious and distressed in a busy airport for 15 minutes because legs and wheels had to go through a different way. So these are examples of how infrastructure can be very limiting. And sometimes infrastructure can be very enabling. You know, there are places that I know I can go, and I can go from my home to that place and around that place and do whatever I'm doing and come home again completely independently, because infrastructure is set up in such a way that it makes it accessible to me. And there are lots of things that can be done to make things accessible. So in the context of this week's reading, then, this is really about, you know, what infrastructure can we set up in life to make things easy, to make things work, to make things accessible. So those are a couple of kind of external things that we all come into contact with, people and infrastructure. And then the next position is like, it's more internal. So I've called it the real you, but it's kind of what's going on inside you. So I've found that in navigating the world with disability, you know, there are aspects of that are visible, there are aspects that are invisible, there are aspects which involve dealing with people, aspects that involve dealing with infrastructure. And then there's me inside, and it's not as simple as I don't see myself as disabled, because I do. That's an experience I'm having. But I see myself as a whole and complete person. So, you know, this is not the only thing about me. And so the position of the spread is about that internally, what's going on. Who is having the experience, and how do you turn up to the experience? And then finally, there's a position which I'm calling what's important. And it's just that, what's important, you know, there are things in life that are really important. Accessibility is important. Relationships are important. Safety and security is important. I mean, there are so many things in life that are important. And so this, in the context of this spread, this is just a position to invite the cards to let us know what is, or to help us to remember, because we know anyway, don't we? To help us to remember what's important this week. So that is our spread for this week's tarot reading. And once again, I'm using the beautiful Tarot of the Moors. This by Gina Theus, and I'll be using it for the next couple of readings. So I'll invite you to take a deep breath and just ask to receive what you need. And if there is something that you're working with, that you're working through this week, then you might want to bring that to mind. Just ask for any guidance that might come up. Okay, so our first position then, the visible. What is visible? What's clear to everyone, or to many? Not everyone can see or see well, but what is presenting that influences your experience and interactions. And we have the Malika of Cups, so that's the Queen of Cups in some decks, and what a beautiful card to come up. So the Malika of Cups is, the cups is of the emotions, the heart, intuition, element of water. And the Malika of Cups is someone who is really very much in their emotional experience. And this card has come out upright, so also in their emotional experience, in a way that is working, because sometimes we can get overwhelmed by emotions, which might be indicative if this card comes out reversed, for example, but sometimes we can be really in our emotions and be able to contain them in a way that is appropriate. The cup is the container. And I love this Malika of Cups because she's looking straight at us, really with this sort of lovely expression on her face. You imagine that she might be going to offer you a cup or to cheers your cup with hers. So there's this kind of feeling of camaraderie or friendship or loving kindness in some way. And that's a lovely archetype to come up for us in this position of what's visible. And it reminds us that when people know that we are struggling, usually people are compassionate, and usually they can meet us there. So for anyone who is struggling with something at the moment, if you are able to communicate that, and you know, whether you should have to explain yourself is a different question, right? But if you can communicate anything that you are struggling with, or that is disabling you in some way, then you may find that this compassion, this support is on hand. And when I say compassion, I want to be really clear here about the meaning of the word for me as I use it and as I'm using it here. It's not pity. It's not, oh, you poor thing, can I help you? It's compassion. It's, I see you as another being who is like me, even if we're not alike in all the same ways. I see you as a human with a heart, and I recognize that. That's the kind of compassion I'm talking about. So in whatever you're going through, in making that visible or making that known in, you know, obviously in safe circles, in safe ways that are perhaps contained, there is compassion around. There are other people who recognize you. So that's a lovely first card to get. So our second position then is the invisible. So what's invisible or unknown that influences your experience and your interactions, but your interactions are part of your experience. So what is not seen and known? And we've got here the Ace of Wands. So these are a lovely pair of cards so far, and I hope the rest of the cards are good for us. So the Ace of Wands is wands are about energy, creativity, passion, fire. And you see here this Ace of Wands. Aces are always a beginning, a spark, a possibility, things being possible. And I think because this has come up in this position of invisible, in the context of invisible disability, but of what's invisible for us this week, it really is about how we tend our energy. And it's interesting because a lot of people who experience invisible disability or invisible illness, one of the things that's affected is energy levels, yeah? And it's one of those things that people can't see or tell if they don't, certainly if they don't know what they're looking at or for. And so this is a reminder to tend to our energy. With the aces, I always say, it is a beginning. It is like things are possible here in the realm of energy and creativity and the fire and passion, but only if we tend to them. If the ace isn't quite ready to run on its own, we have to take it and run with it. And so our flames, our inner flames, our energy, these are for tending this week. But if we can tend to our energy well, then we have the potential to have a really positive experience, positive week. But start with that. Nothing is a given, but things are possible. And if you tend your energy, those possibilities become more available. So that's our second card for the reading. The next one is people. So, how might your interactions with people go this week? What might that be like? And we have here, it's a major arcana card, the Moon. I love this card, and I love it in this position. It's really, I think it's got a lot to say to us. So the Moon is, well, firstly, the major arcana cards are about sort of life lessons, life stages. These energies can sometimes be around for a little bit longer than, for example, the minor arcana cards. And they can be lessons that we're learning. And then with the Moon, all of these questions of sort of cyclicity come up. So, have a look at the Moon phase. Where is it? What's that like for you? I think we're on a waning moon, aren't we? And you have this, there's immense beauty here. And then you see here these two canine characters. So this canines are amazing because we have the sort of wildness of wolves, and we have the companionship of dogs, and we have those both there, both with us. So with the Moon, things can fluctuate, and sometimes there is this sort of companionable way in how people might be this week, and sometimes there might be a little bit of wildness and a not so easiness. And the other meaning of the Moon, it's not one of my favourite meanings, but it is one of the traditional meanings, is about there's an aspect of illusion or seeing things differently from what they really are. So I would just be aware of that with people this week. Again, in this context, we've talked about what's visible, what's invisible, regardless of disability or any other aspect of experience. everyone experiences the world differently. You know, we all come from a different perspective. And so although we can, of course, understand each other really well all the time, especially with effort, we also can't take for granted that what we mean by something is automatically what another person means by something. And so just be aware of that in your interactions with people this week. The next position is infrastructure. So infrastructure, physical, cultural, societal. How can we deal with infrastructure, or how might infrastructure support us this week? And it's the 6 of discs. So we've had 3 of the 4 minor arcana suits so far in this reading. And the 6 of discs is, or pentacles, is about what is material. And this is a card of material. So that can be health, the body, wealth. And the 6 of discs is about exchange. How we exchange. So again, that can be material exchange. And what I really like in this 6 of discs is that you've got this kind of measuring and exchanging going on. You've got someone here, a merchant perhaps, with their wares laid out. You've got this big shadow in the middle of the table, and it actually reminds me of that moon card. So it can be about, you know, again, those assumptions that we have between us, but also kind of what's unseen. And what possibilities are there as well. So in the context of this position in the reading of infrastructure, this can be about how there is some exchange needed. So whether that is, you know, if you do find infrastructure is organized in a way that is not accessible to you, then you know, you may need to offer in exchange for that experience, as I frequently find myself doing, some feedback to the designers of that infrastructure, because they may not even know it. And you know, you may want to help support the infrastructures that support you. So this is a different context, but I live in York, and all the libraries in York, recently they stopped charging library fines, and they stopped charging for reservations at the library because they wanted, you know, there's a big cost of greed crisis happening in the UK at the moment. I don't think it's only in the UK either. And so the libraries stopped charging fines and reservation fees because they wanted the libraries to be accessible to everyone. Yes, what a wonderful example of infrastructure. But that means that, you know, for people like me who can, you know, could probably afford the library fines, I might want to pay something into that to make sure that that infrastructure is there for the people who, you know, really were being locked out of access to libraries, to knowledge, to safe spaces by those charges. So those are some of the ways in which this card might remind us about how we interact with infrastructure. The next position then is what I'm calling real you, or perhaps more accurately, what's going on internally. Who and how is this person who's having the experience of this week? We've got the 6 of Swords. So that's all 4 suits that have come up in all 4 minor arcana suits and a major arcana that have come up in this reading so far. So I like that. I like the symmetry of that. And the 6 of Swords, you can see here, here's someone on a boat, on a journey. It's a liminal space. So this may be about a transition. You might be in a phase of transition of some kind. You might be making a literal journey. You will most certainly be on a metaphorical journey of some kind. And this 6 can be about really being in that journey and, you know, There's always something you leave behind, there's always something you go to, and there is a water through which you travel. So although the swords is a suit of air, it's about the mind, that what's happening mentally, particularly our beliefs, the way that we experience in our minds, our mental behaviours. There's a lot of water in this card as well. So we use our minds to make sense of our experience. So as we go on this journey through the water, through the, there are depths there that are unknown. And if we're lucky, we'll stay afloat. And the emotion, the water again is, kind of represent emotions and intuition and the unconscious. But we can use our minds to navigate this. So whatever your experience is this week and in whatever context, using mental behaviors to navigate your journey to the best of your ability can be really helpful. So it's not as simple as, just look on the bright side. Of course it's not, but certainly appreciating what you can in life can just help make the journey a little bit easier. And yeah, there's an acknowledgement there that, there is journey, there's transition, there's change of some kind happening. So finally, the final card of the reading, what's important? What's important? And look at this, we have the Major Arcana number 1, the Charmer, who is sometimes the Magician. So you'll see here, this is someone who is exercising their will to create a certain outcome. So we've got the swords, the cups, the pentacles here, and is the wand perhaps even in that snake, or is it in that sunrise in the background, or is it both? Or in the backpack there even. But the Magician has all the resources they need. So when we talk about resources, there are internal resources, your resilience, your knowledge, your awareness, your experience, your attitude, many other things that are internal resources and that you can influence. And of course, you can access external resources as well, and different people have different access. But there are always something that you can access. So the Magician is someone who knows the outcome that they want and is able to marshal these resources to direct them towards that particular outcome. And the other thing we say about the Magician is that they create their own reality. So this is an archetype that, again, it's that similar to the sort of what the Six of Swords was telling us about our mental behaviors affect the journey. Our beliefs affect what's possible for us. We create the reality according to us. So choose wisely as you're creating your reality. But really, this is a very affirming card. It's a reminder that you do have this power within you. You have magic within you. You are the Magician. You might be the Charmer. Charm might be one of your resources that you use to navigate your way through life. So it's a wonderful affirming card to finish our reading on. Thank you very much for joining me. There are many more tarot resources, including the Magician live workshop cycle, which is happening at the moment on the Guided by Keziah app. And if you are interested in disability experience, I'm in a process at the moment. I am still trying to work out where it's appropriate to say what, because I realised that in how I present to the world and my social profiles, a lot of that is about magic and tarot and Reiki and all the wonderful things that I do and that have become wonderful resources for me that have really made a difference in my life. But at the same time, most days I've got something to say about accessibility as well. And often, not always, but often there is some disappointment in what I have to say. So I have actually created now a separate account over on Threads called Accessibility Grumps, and that's for separate content from this. But if it is that's for accessibility reviews mainly. But if that is something you're interested in, then you can go over there as well. But yes, thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you next week for our tarot reading for the week ahead. I'd love to see you in the Magician or in the Guided by Keziah app. And I wish you a wonderful week. Remember, you have all the resources you need and you can create your own reality.